Welcome to ConvHERsations with Kristie, brought to you by Herverse, a community where women who lead, build, and grow come together. This is a space for real, unscripted conversations with bold leaders who are creating impact. No fluff, no filters, just honest insights to help you lead well and live fully. Because at Herverse, we believe leadership isn't meant to be done alone. I am confident you are going to love it. So let's get started. Welcome to this week's episode, y'all. I am so excited to have Nicole Oden on today. She is an incredible guest that's going to provide lots of nuggets of wisdom, I am confident. So, Nicole, welcome. I'm so excited to have you here today.
I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I would love to have you introduce yourself. Nobody's going to introduce you quite the way that you will. So I would love to have you introduce yourself to the audience.
Yeah, so I am Nicole Oden. I am a licensed attorney in the state of California. I have my own virtual law firm, Nicole Oden Law PC, and I work with online business owners who are looking to protect their businesses and brands with both trademarks and contracts. I also have an online business, Legal Templates and More, and that provides legal templates and resources for online business owners who aren't ready to work with an attorney one-on-one yet for whatever reason, but know that they need to start building that legal knowledge and that legal foundation. And so it's kind of the entry point to make sure that they're protecting themselves.
I love that. Nicole, I'm really curious from you. How did this all get started? Did you always want to be an attorney that did this type of work, or how did your passion for trademarks and businesses come about?
Yeah, so I actually started my legal career as a family law attorney. When I was in law school, I was taking a lot of like sociology of child abuse classes and things that really I felt passionate about in terms of family law. Got into it. And while it was rewarding, I quickly found out you have to be a very strong person. You quickly become your client's therapist. And even with strong boundaries, there is crossover. And after having my daughter, I just felt this pull to where it just didn't feel like the right fit anymore. And I was on my own personal development journey, trying to figure out who I was as a woman and an attorney and now a mom, and kind of stumbled into the online space myself and started connecting with other female business owners who would find out I was an attorney, and they're like messaging me on Instagram and Facebook like, hey, I have this contract question, or what type of entity should I form? Or, I want to name my company, but there's other companies with similar names. Is that okay? And in my mind, I'm kind of like, well, why don't you just reach out to an attorney and have that conversation with them? And 9 times out of 10, they would say that legal felt too expensive, too overwhelming. It was going to be some old white guy that was talking down to them. And it was kind of like that entrepreneurial light bulb moment for me where it was like, this is what I'm called to do, is to work with these women to build these legacy brands and make sure they're protecting themselves. And I've never looked back.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you had that pivotal moment of a change, right? Where, I mean, so many of us experience that. We think we're going to do one thing and we start our career in that way, and then something happens and there's a change that occurs. So I love that.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like a lot of the empathy and compassion that I fine-tuned in my career as a family law attorney transitions so well for business owners, because for solopreneurs, small business owners, even some corporate CEOs, their business becomes like them. There's this sense of identity. And so when I have to have those hard conversations about rebranding or an issue that came up with a client that's now a learning lesson, I think those lessons from family law transition really well to being able to hold space for them and kind of walk them through, even though it's a business issue, it still feels personal sometimes.
Yeah, no, and listen, I get that. There's, and it's funny, even in my personal life, I've experienced that too, where I felt like maybe it's something I wish I wouldn't have gone through, right? It was something really, really hard, but it's something that I overcome. And so it's interesting for me when I look back at like my early years and kind of how I've changed over time, thinking about, wow, like if any of those things wouldn't have happened to me, I would be a very different person than I am today. So how your family law like kind of carried over, it's so true of so many aspects of our life too.
Yeah, I think it's really hard to build a business in a vacuum. I feel like there's so much that informs us as business owners that I think challenges us to become better. And I feel like when you try and separate that business plus life, you're just going to experience issues. I'm very supportive of work-life integration, and that's something that I'm very strong about advocating for. Part of the reason that I had left my old firm and went out on my own was after maternity leave. I'd kind of negotiated with the managing partner to work from home some days. And this was pre-COVID, right? So it's before work from home was a thing. And I remember the senior associate complained that he was playing favorites. And so it lasted 2 weeks. And then he said I needed to be back in the office full time. And the senior associate was another woman. And I told myself that I was going to build a firm that could do things differently and support other women who were trying to do things differently. So
And I'm glad you said that, because it's really interesting that a lot of times where I see entrepreneurs really being successful and really like making a real contribution is when things like this do happen, right? When something happened to them that they're like, I don't want this to happen to anybody else. I don't want to go through it again. And I certainly don't want others to have that same experience that I had. So we create things that are different.
yeah. And I think that's such a pivotal experience for most entrepreneurs, is that that's the best place that they create from. There's so much ingenuity that comes from a difficult time that they're able to turn around and help make beneficial.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But with that being said, a lot of times we're creating new, right? Which means that, having things in place legally is really, really important. Things like trademarks and, protecting your IP and all those things. So I'd love to kind of dive deep into that with you. And why is it so important that as we're building things that we're protecting that intellectual property that we're building?
Yeah. So, especially in the online space, intellectual property is arguably the most important asset for your business. You're creating processes and frameworks and goodwill surrounding your brands. And I think there's this big misconception that a brand and a trademark are the same thing. And while they're very closely related, they are not. So, your brand is the overall feeling the customers get when they engage with your company. So, if they come away feeling empowered or energized, or just excited about whatever product it is that you offer, that's your brand. And your trademark is legal protection for pieces of your brand. So your, business name, your logo, things that you're actually using to designate the source of your goods and services in commerce. That's your trademark. And so protecting those trademarks is a really valuable asset for you as a business owner, because they have value. They can be sold. They can be licensed. One of the first things that your team will do if you decide that you want to sell your company, when the M&A attorney comes in, they're going to look at your intellectual property portfolio and what registered trademarks do you have? And if things aren't registered, that could potentially decrease the value of your company. And so it's just thinking long term in terms of legacy. And even if you don't intend to sell your business one day, maybe you want to leave it to your kids. And just thinking in those long-term, let me protect what I'm building, frameworks is one of the most important things that you can do as a business owner.
Yeah, and I love that. And there's also a layer of protection as well, right? If someone else tries to do what you're doing or is trying to copy you, then there are certain legal rights that you have as well, correct?
Yeah. So with trademarks, you have rights from the moment that you start using a trademark in commerce. So the moment that you launch a podcast and you give it a fun name, there's trademark rights in there. And those are called common law rights. You get additional protections. It's like a trademark with teeth when you decide that you want to register it. So when you register your trademark with the United States Patent and Trademark Office, it actually gives you the ability to stop infringers in all 50 states. So if somebody starts deciding that they want to steal that goodwill that you've built and kind of trade off of it and start their own business, it gives you the right to send that cease and desist letter. And if they ignore it, you can take them to federal court. So it's definitely something that is an extra layer of protection, because, I've had situations where clients have registrations, they send a cease and desist letter, the person keeps doing what they're doing anyways. And then when they're able to file, like initiate the litigation, they're also entitled to attorney's fees and damages. And so it escalates things. And then the infringer's kind of like, oh, I should have thought about that, mea culpa. And then they start backing off. So like I said, it's a trademark with teeth, essentially.
I love that. I love that phrase, a trademark with teeth. That's great. So one of the things that I'm thinking about though is, a big part of my audience is the right hand leader. So I know business owners, we oftentimes are thinking about those things, and why it's important, and whether we follow through with it on or not is a question. But as if I'm sitting in the second in command seat, right, that COO, that integrator role, why is this something that should be top of mind for me?
Yeah. So having those legal rocks or those scorecard items to kind of make sure it's on your radar. The business owner is so often running, and they're just ideating at such a fast pace. They're coming up with new names for products and services. They're reaching out for collaborations. They're hiring. And, you know, typically it's not top of mind to think, oh, maybe I should see if somebody else is using this name in connection with, something similar, a similar product or service. Maybe I should actually see if they're willing to even sign a contract before we collaborate, just in case things go south. I mean, it's just not top of mind for most people. And so having an integrator in the second seat to kind of rein them in a little bit and, hey, like this is great. I love where you're going, but what about X, Y, and Z? And keeping that top of mind is beneficial for the business owner. And it also helps build the business's value long term.
That's a great point. It is building that value. And again, I feel like one of the roles that we have as an integrator or COO is the fact that we do tend to be that protector, right? We're the protector of the business. We're the protector of our visionary and all of their thoughts and ideas, and we harness and nurture that. And part of that does mean making sure that things are secure within the business, so that it can be protected in the future.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not to say like, hey, you need to go get a law degree. It's just knowing that you have these things top of mind when they're running 1,000 miles a minute, and you're just trying to make sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and you're building those systems that are going to help them grow and help them scale. And it's having those kind of, milestone checkpoints in place for them that I think are really valuable.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And one thing that you said, like, that I'd love to really think about with you is, names and logos and things are some of the obvious things, but what should we be protecting?
Yeah. So most times business owners start with one trademark, and typically that tends to be their business name. And so you have your entity name with the Secretary of State that you register. But if you're using the business name as a trademark, then you would also want to explore trademark registration. So if it's the name of a coaching program, if it's the name of, a SaaS product, then having that trademark registration, locked down is really kind of the first part of building a trademark portfolio. A lot of business owners kind of expand from there. So whether it's that same trademark for additional goods and services, or sometimes they'll build a suite of trademarks, and they start to think about, their logos. They start to think about, maybe they have a catchy jingle that they play in connection with their services. Like if you think about the NBC chime, that's a registered trademark. Um, there's so many out of the box things that you can think about in terms of like product packaging for trade dress. The smell of Play-Doh is a registered trademark. So really the sky is the limit in terms of what you can protect in your business. And I think that element of fun, I think it kind of makes it feel less like, oh, this is legal, and like, why am I going down this path? And more of like, oh, like, what can I protect, and what can we build for brand recognition? I think it's a really good like reframe.
Yeah, I never heard that the Play-Doh smell was trademarked, and that is such a distinguishable smell. Like you always know when it's Play-Doh, right?
Yep. That smell brings back so many childhood memories, and that's why
Right?
they've
Well,
decided to
it
register
will
it.
be right back. Yeah, I totally agree. That's interesting. So, and listen, I think you're correct when what you were saying earlier, that a lot of people, when they do think about legal, the first thing that comes to mind is, first of all, just the formality of it, right? It's like, oh, this is so formal. But the second thing is the cost that's associated, and a lot of times when you think about attorneys or the things that attorneys provide, it's assumed that it's extremely expensive. So can you share a little bit about cost? Like, is it extremely expensive to trademark? And also on the other side of that, what is the cost of not trademarking?
Yeah. So You definitely want to chat with, I would say, at least a handful of attorneys. Get like 3 and just chat about their process. Because my law firm, we work on a flat fee basis. So I have a trademark search and registration application package. That's a flat fee. So you know going into it what you are going to pay. Some attorneys charge hourly. They charge a retainer and then they bill against that hourly. And so it really is the best fit for you in terms of cost. I mean, there are trademark filing mills out there that will charge you a very low amount. And while that feels maybe more welcomed at the start, depending on your budget, they also aren't there to kind of represent you for what happens when things go south. They're not counseling you about smart decisions to make in your filing and how you're using the mark. And so that smaller investment upfront could end up being more costly if you have issues come up down the line. So I definitely recommend working with a firm that you feel comfortable with, you can talk to on a professional level, that may challenge you and ask questions. Because people think, oh, it's just a trademark application. It's so easy. I'm going to go with one of these filing companies, but it's the cornerstone of your brand. So to your other question, what if I don't explore trademark registration? I've had clients that they decided not to do a search, not even a basic search to see if somebody else was using a mark and launch a business. And then they end up getting a cease and desist letter. And, it may be a couple of years down the line, but you've spent tens of thousands of dollars potentially in branding and your website and marketing and all the things to build goodwill under this brand. And here comes a company that's saying, hey, we have a registered trademark and we've been in business, 5 times as long as you. You need to rebrand and potentially pay us damages, depending on what's going on. It could cost you, again, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars, depending on how far in you are, how big your company is, if they're going to push for you to pay damages. It gets expensive to not do that legal legwork up front, and you can't put legal protections in place after the fact. So it's always better to at least sit down with an attorney and have a conversation, because you don't know what you don't know. At least explore what it looks like for you and for your business and your brand, and then you can make a more educated choice.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. That's a great way for us to really frame it. Is it's not always the cost of what you're paying up front, but it's the cost that could come afterwards if you don't do certain things. So I definitely appreciate that. I have another question for you, because I hear this a lot. Like for Herverse, for example, if we were to brand, our name, and we've carried that her throughout so many things, including ConvHERsations with Kristie. How important is it to brand over and over, like or is it branding something in particular, and that just carries through all of the things that you do, or do you really truly need to brand each one?
So that really is a business decision. I have clients that have gone both ways. I have clients that have built a really solid multi-million-dollar brand under one trademark, and that is what's associated with all of the goods and services that they provide, from, an online store that sells merch, to their podcast name, to retreats, to, their one-to-one services with clients. And then I have other clients that have very distinct brands based on the branch of their company. And they prefer to have distinct branches because maybe one service is really something that they intend to maintain long term. And their long term vision is to either sell or license other branches. And so it's easy to have separate marks in their mind associated with the different divisions. And so it is one of those case by case analysis decisions that you have to make. And again, it's helpful to have an attorney involved in that conversation because they can weigh the pros and cons of both and kind of really nail down what are your long-term goals, what makes the most sense for you and where you are, and maybe the next 10 years. So it can be a little bit nuanced.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. And there's so many things to take into consideration. So at least having that conversation with somebody who this is what they do, right? This is their expertise, is really beneficial and definitely prudent in the phase that you're in when you're building something.
100%. And it will change. I mean, you've got to think when you're in those initial years of your business, sometimes you're really just trying to make sure that there's proof of concept and make sure that you're building an audience and there's value to the brand. I've had clients come to me where they're just launching and they, in their head, they know this is the direction I'm going and it's going to take off. And they file an application very early, and lo and behold, it takes off. I've had other clients where they're like, well, we're dabbling, we want to lock it down. And then, even a year later, they've moved on to a whole different brand. So you want to make sure that you're kind of asking yourself, is this something that I intend to stay with long term, at least long enough to where the work and the investment makes sense? Do I have proof of concept to where the investment makes sense? And do I want to protect it? Because I think one of the things that people, they look at trademark registration, it's a fun, catchy thing, especially in the online space, like, oh, it's registered, that's my trademark. But they're not thinking long term. You also have to protect it. So if there are infringers, you have to be willing to send the cease and desist letters or initiate litigation potentially if they're going to thumb their nose at you. And that is an additional cost that you have to think of long term, because why do all this work, get it registered, and just let infringers kind of run amok with the brand? Because that also can lead to your brand being canceled. So.
Oh, that's very true. That's a great point to make too, is, if you don't intend to do anything about it, then why, what is your intention of trademarking? What is the purpose? What is the long-term objective there? And I think you're right. That term, it really gets tossed around now so much, right? Is trademark it, right? Trademark it. And I think the intention behind trademarking has gotten lost a little bit.
Yeah, I really do think that having a registered trademark for your business is a wonderful investment. But I think timing and just, again, that analysis of where you are in business and where you want to go is really key. And maybe you're just not there yet.
Yeah, very, very true. I knew this was going to be like one of those like golden nuggets moments of just different things that were being said that would provide value to those that are listening. So thanks for coming on, Nicole, and having this conversation with us so that we are protecting ourselves and our businesses.
No, thanks for having me. This was a really fun conversation. I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah, I can tell you light up and you're really passionate about it. Your enthusiasm for this work definitely shows through in your body language and how you talk about it. So thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, friend, do you know how I love to kind of wrap up conversations here is by going through honor, empower, and inspire. And listen, if this is your first time hearing this, honor, empower, inspire means a lot to me. Honor is really thinking about a woman of a past generation that either made an impact on you personally or in the world. And I'm really curious from you, Nicole, who do you want to honor?
I would say Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I'm tremendously paraphrasing here, but she has this quote about when there are 9. And I think
Yes.
it's so telling that having 9 men on the Supreme Court is so normalized. And yet the thought of having 9 women to this day still makes people kind of scratch their heads. And, that's something that we need to change.
Yes, I could not agree with you more. I had somebody recently ask me, like, Kristie, when is this whole like women empowerment thing going to be enough for you? And I rephrased her and said, when women don't, we're at every table, when we're at every board meeting, when we're able to make every decision that we want to make without, someone looking sideways at, wow, that's a woman at that table. So I love that you're honoring her. That's amazing. What about empower? So empower for me really truly means, thinking of women that are in our generation, that are in leadership today, that are in business today, that are really truly just empowering others to be their best. So who is it that you hope to either empower or that empowers you to be your most?
My mom. So she did not go to college, and she's always kind of just championed me and told me that, you're a quiet leader and you can accomplish whatever you want to accomplish. And so going to law school, passing the bar, starting not 1 but 2 businesses, and having her there on the sidelines has been amazing. But it's also been fun because lately she's been tossing around ideas of like her own entrepreneurial journey and, maybe starting creating like gift cards and things for other people, like that she decorates because she enjoys crafting. And so seeing that those options, are things that she's now thinking about because she's watching what I'm doing, I think has been one of the fun things.
I love that. You're empowering each other, right? She's empowering you, but you're also empowering her to step into hers. I love that. Absolutely love that. And then inspire really is thinking of a future generation, those that we hope to inspire that are coming up behind us. Who is it that you hope to inspire?
My daughter. So she is 9, and I always call myself an accidental entrepreneur because I did not envision having my own law firm. Like, I was happy being an associate in big law. And after I had her, that really changed things. And when things went south at my family law firm, it was kind of that confidence of, if not me, who? And if not now, when? And I just kind of jumped without a parachute. And so having her comment on things like, "Oh, you are your own boss," or, "Oh, you have a business, and maybe one day I can run a business," and just hearing the concept of entrepreneurship and the concept of not having to just work a 9 to 5 in an office, or, a 7 to 10, depending on what career you're in. I want to mirror that for her. I want her to see that the sky really is the limit, and she can create her own path. And it's been fun to watch her kind of explore who she could be. I feel like every other week it's a new career idea, and I just encourage
I
it.
love that. That's so fun when they're young like that, right? It's great to see like all of the things that they're thinking about, and how they can who they can become, and all those things. So congratulations, you're definitely a great role model for her. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, again, friend, I knew this was going to be just one of those episodes that there was just nuggets of wisdom shared. And I'm so grateful that you came on and spoke to everybody today. So thank you again for being here, and just really, really enjoyed the conversation.
I did too. And thank you so much for, I think, just this mission of being so supportive and really paving the way for female entrepreneurs, I think is amazing. So thank you too.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, everybody, I hope you enjoyed today's episode and that you gained something from this. And definitely look into whether there's something you need to be trademarking and protecting on your side. I can't wait to see you again next week. Have a good one. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of ConvHERsations with Kristie. I hope you're walking away with a few nuggets of inspiration, maybe a new perspective, or just a reminder that you're not alone in your leadership journey. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a friend, drop us a comment, or tag us with your favorite takeaway. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep showing up, keep leading with heart, and keep building the kind of life and leadership that feels true to you. I'll see you in the next ConvHERsation.